Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sannavadi Pasyata Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Grantaraja Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So Hare Krishna, sorry, just give me. It's been rushed since this morning. Okay, devotees. So let us see, where did we stop yesterday? And anyone can recall a few things from yesterday's discussion. So just take 5 minutes to go over it.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Dhantavat Pranam. All glory to Yalita Prabhu. Nice seeing you again. Krishna will continue to strengthen you. I'm not feeling too well, but I'm struggling. I'm attending this lecture today. So,
okay.
What we did yesterday, we were discussing about the differentiation between the avatar and the incarnation. So we explained how Krishna took its different forms. The time he was took the form of Varaha. The time he took the form of Hiranyakashipu. The form of I'm not sure. So in nutshell, Krishna is just displaying his different energies because he has that freedom to come in different forms. And from observation, you see that he's taking different forms which are appropriate for a particular objective or purpose. So that's just my observation.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, so we start with text 30. Okay, text 29 or 30. And we will just...
I think we finished text 31.
Okay, so it's text 31. Maitreya, and then the Lord returned to his abode where there's always an uninterrupted festival. We did that 31 also.
Yes, 32. We should start from 32.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narotamam Deving Saraswating Vyasam Tato Jayam Udhirayet Nasta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhakti Vodinestiki Grantaraja Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So third canto, chapter 19, the killing of demon Hiranyaksha. Text 32. Maya yatha nuktam avadite hare. Be nice if you all mute. Yeah. Kritavatasya sumitra cheshtitam yatha hiranyaksha udhare vikramo Mahamride Kridanavan Niraktaha. My dear Vidura, I have explained to you the personality of Godhead coming down as a first boy incarnation and killing in a great fight of a demon of unprecedented prowess, as if he were just a plaything. This has been narrated by me as I heard it from my predecessor spiritual master. So Maitreya is explaining to Vidura and giving due respect to his own spiritual master, which is Parasara Muni, right? And they have heard the story. He has heard the story in his parampara system, and therefore he is making sure that his humility is shown by showing that he has heard from his own spiritual master, and therefore he is now explaining. And the killing of this great Hiranyaksha, who had unprecedented powers, but his killing was just like breaking a plaything or a toy. And this is a narration here. Okay. So the power in the purport, it is explained that the power of the Lord is such that he can kill millions of demons as simply as a child plays with dolls and breaks them. Right? So this is quite usual. We understand that. The Lord is very powerful. He's Balavan. Amongst one of the bhagas he has the bhaga of Bala, the opulence of Bala, extremely strong. So that was, again, a Sangati verse narrating. Maitreya has been speaking all of this to Vidura, where he has included the narrations of the Devas and Lord Brahma in his narrations. And now continues Sutta Goswami, who is explaining it to Shanakrishi and everyone else. Okay, so I hope now everything is clear about these intermingling of dialogues, or, dialogues within dialogues and are interjected into the narrations, right? So Sutta Goswami is now speaking. Sishuddha Uvacha.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Prabhu, before we go into the next phase of this discussion, I was listening to the last 2-3 classes that we had on this narration of pastimes of Lord Vishnu with the two gatekeepers, Kashipu and in their various pastimes. And I was following the dialogue, and I'm wondering, I've been praying that I should have the proper words to explain what I want to understand to you. But I really could not find a proper word. So the only thing that could come to my head is, why did Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu preach Achintya Beda Abeda Tattva? Because when you look at all of the seemingly interlocked discussions, what Lord Vishnu is expressing, what happens before the case, the example of the case of Lakshmi, being stopped by Jaya Vijaya, showing their traits of activities, the Lord knowing all of these activities. When you go back to the story of Aditi and Kasyapa, when you go back from the beginning of these stories to this end of this story, you start wondering, in our material conditional life, how one can understand these all activities of the Lord. And you in one of the lectures you reference very nicely, which always like the central verse Prabhupada will always quote, Jama Kama Chame Divyam Ivam Yo Veti Tatwata, that when one understand this transcendental person of the Lord. So I'm trying to figure in my head, in summary, the whole of these pastimes. How do we relate it vis-a-vis our understanding of Krishna consciousness, practice of bhakti, demons in the spiritual world, and all of this, and our present situation, trying to be a devotee? Can you give a kind of like I said, I'm finding it difficult to find the exact way to put the questions. But what is ringing in my head is, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Achinta Beda Beda Atatwa. How do we understand what is the purpose behind this philosophy?
Okay, it starts with you see, we follow the Madhava Sampradaya.
Okay.
And the Madhava Sampradaya explains Sakti Parinamavad. The Lord manifests through transformation of his different energies. That's our philosophy also. But the transformation of the Lord's energy to effect and to cause different things to happen, it is not always explained that when the Lord is acting directly, always the energies are acting. Sometimes they are acting in ways that we cannot understand. This is called achintya, inconceivable. So we are in our mind, we cannot actually grasp how is it possible that the Lord is acting in this way and his energies are acting in that way. And therefore, like for example, in the Chatushloki, he says that I do enter this material world, but I do not enter the material world. So he does enter the material world through his energies. He does enter the material world through his expansions and incarnations, which are an integral part of him. But at the same time, they are not Krishna himself. So that's also another way of understanding. So because of this principle of the Lord, pravishtani pravishtani tatha teshu na teshu ham, I enter, I do not enter, which is the third verse of the Chatushloki. This is actually the philosophy of Ramanuja and Madhvacharya could not reconcile this. So therefore, Lord Chaitanya came up with this philosophy of achintya, inconceivable, one and different. Bheda abheda, there's difference and there's oneness at the same time. So we can say that the Lord is acting himself because he's acting through his expansions or his energies. But at the same time, like he says, I do enter and I do not enter. Right? So you can reconcile it through that understanding that the Lord's different expansions, different forms, different energies, different activities are his own. But if we choose to, it doesn't have to be his own. It can be his expansion or his different transformed energies. So yes, so therefore to understand the full tattva based on the 4-9, Janma karma chume divya megvam yuveti tattvatya, chak tattva, is actually fully understood by tattva means in truth, how it is. It can only be fully understood through expansion of this Shakti Parinamavad into, that's a long discussion, but Shakti Parinamavad into Achinta Beda Beda Tattva. You know, the Dasmula Tattva of Madhvacharya explain the basic truths, the different tattvas, right? But it becomes complete when you include the Achinta Beda Beda Tattva. Becomes complete when you speak, because some things are inconceivable. Some things are, we cannot actually conceive of it. We cannot understand of it. Now, the reason also that we cannot understand or conceive or see it for what it is because if we did, it would make the Lord a subset of our mind or mental faculty. So he stays beyond our mental faculty. He stays beyond our grasp, beyond our understanding. And the only way he can remain beyond our understanding, beyond our grasp, beyond our understanding, or beyond the understanding of even the most erudite person is because he is a Supreme Lord and we are limited. So that Achintya Beda Beda Tattva is a perfect philosophy of understanding the absolute truth. That's why even though Lord Chaitanya put it like this, it is present in Chatushloki. It is our Bhagavad philosophy, enunciated by Lord Vyasadeva. right? And how did Vyasadeva later on, he saw it. He actually saw it with his own eyes, and the Lord inspired him to see it in his meditation when his spiritual master chastised him for writing these books like that. And he went on to the meditation, and in his samadhi, he saw the Lord and he saw his different energies. He actually saw, he had darshan. That's why he writes the Srimad Bhagavatam. In his actual samadhi, Lord Vyasadeva actually sees the 1748 or 68. I can't quite remember. Let me just see. I can get the reference. I don't know where I've been studying it, but I just not sharp enough to remember all the details because it is very intense.
Interesting.
So yeah, it is. If when the samadhi of Vyasa, if he can see it, so that's why it's actually in terms of pramana. In terms of pramana means that it is Vedic truth. But pratyaksha is also pramana. But what kind of pratyaksha? What kind of pratyaksha? Seeing is also pramana. When someone in his pure consciousness, he sees the Supreme Lord, then what he sees, pratyaksha, with his own eyes, with his own internal antakarana, he sees, becomes pramana. So when we say that the spiritual master has actually seen the truth, what does that mean? When you say, I have seen the truth, seen means seeing with the eyes, seeing with the mind, seeing with the intellect, seeing with the internal sense organ. But that's pratyaksha. That's eyes onto object. That's considered the lowest form of proof. But not when it is fully inspired by spiritual understanding. So actually pratyaksha is also like praman for them. So they have seen. So that's why when we say Evamya Veti Tattata, we have to be able to understand it to the point of, okay, now I see how the Lord is acting. Then we can actually say Tattvata in truth. Like we were debating about this issue of the fourth, he slapped him. Right? So the Lord slapped him. How can you slap with the leg? You can slap with the hand. So I always understood that he slapped it with his hand. But then at that point, I was thinking the Lord being our Lord Vishnu, right? But then also when you read down below, you see that he actually hit him with the foreleg. Slapped him with his foreleg. So is there a difference between the foreleg of Lord Varaha and the slap of Lord Vishnu? We cannot conceive of it.
Absolutely.
It's a Chinta Veda Veda. It could be.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. I don't know whether it answers your question.
Yeah, it does perfectly. And there is a statement you made which actually sum it up all. And that was why I busted laughing, because you said that if we understand it, if we could understand it, then it means that the Lord can be captured by our minds and intelligence. Then it will not be supreme. So that makes a whole lot of sense. There's a saying in Yoruba cosmology where it is said that what the elders uses to the seniority of an elder to a younger one or junior, he never gives it to the younger one. And when he gives it, he does not tell the one. I think Madhavan will understand what I'm trying to say. When he gives it to the child, he does not teach the child how to use it. And even when he teaches him how to use it, he still is not able to use it. So that statement actually clarifies my mind. So the Lord has to be supreme, and for him to be the supreme, so it is beyond the conception of our intellect. So therefore, ultimately, by Bhakti, when we conceive of what Srimati Radharani is to Lord Krishna, or the Bhav of Lord Srimati Radhika, then we can understand that the Lord becomes manifested based on his own free will. out of the devotion of his devotee.
Yes. Yes, there is a test. I mean, just to understand the limitation of our mind, there's a test. There's a psychological test of a picture. I'm trying to find it. Okay, let's give me a minute. I will find it. And personality test. I think it's a personality test or something. Of something that is inconceivable. So when you're looking at the picture, let me find it on the net and I can post it. Just give me a minute, okay? And then you will understand what is inconceivable, because it's very hard to understand inconceivable. Okay. Give me a minute.
Okay.
Okay, can I share?
Yes, Prabhu. You have the right to share.
Okay. Now, there's a picture on the screen. Okay.
Doesn't come.
Yeah.
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 It's coming.
So I'm putting it now. Can you see that picture?
Yeah, it's still coming. Okay.
Now, let's be honest with each other and look at it and look at that picture and see what you see.
Yeah. In the first, if you look at it from ordinary eye, you look at a pillar. When you look a little
Pillar or a vase? It's a vase. It's a vase.
It's a vase. Okay, a vase. Kind of a
The
vase.
vase.
A vase. Okay, then when you look at deeply, you see two persons facing each other.
Right. Okay. Now, everyone can see that? There's a vase, or there are two faces. Right?
Yeah.
Now,
First you see the vase and the two faces.
That's okay. That's okay. Whichever. I see the two faces first and I see the vase afterwards. Okay. Now, try to keep the vase, the vision of the vase in your mind, and at the same time, try to see the two faces.
Krishna.
You simply can't.
Yeah, it's interwoven.
Yeah, you simply can't. Either you look at the vase, you concentrate on the vase, and you forget that there are two faces, or you look at the two faces and you forget there's a vase.
Yes.
This is psychology. Look, I mean, you'll get used to it after a while. Actually, this is inconceivable. You cannot conceive of one and at the same time conceive of the other.
Yes.
You get it?
Yeah.
So this is a psychological test for people to see that there are things that are inconceivable. You can conceive of the vase, but then you cannot. And as soon as your mind and your eyes move to looking at the two faces, you forget the vase. It slips your mind.
Plain background white.
Right, exactly. So this is kind of an idea of what it is inconceivable. So either it is this or that. But the Lord Chaitanya said, actually it is both, but we cannot conceive of it. It is actually, maybe the person has drawn a vase. Maybe he has drawn two faces.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Right? So
Yeah.
maybe the Lord has entered, maybe he hasn't entered. So he said, Achintya Bheda Abheda is either Bheda, there's a difference, there is no difference.
There's no difference.
But you cannot conceive of it. You can either conceive of it one way, and if you conceive of it one way, you will not conceive of it the other way. That's why it's considered inconceivable in its fullness. So it's quite normal for you not to understand, because that's what it meant to be. But we can give it a caption, and we said that's because it is inconceivable, one and different. That's how it is. And because he is the Lord, he can be both. He can be the two-face and the vase, but we can either see the vase or we see the two-face. We cannot see the both. It's inconceivable. It's a simple example. Okay?
Thank you.
So let's go to the next text. My dear Brahmana, Kshata, okay, he is addressing Vidura, Kshata. The great devotee of the Lord achieved transcendental bliss. My dear Brahmana, he's saying that Vidura, the great devotee of the Lord, achieved the transcendental bliss by hearing the narration of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from the authoritative source of the sage Kausharava, Maitreya, and he was very pleased. So Sudha Goswami is saying this is how the message was received, okay, and therefore he was very pleased. So who was very pleased? Vidura, as a listener, as a hearer, was very pleased. And Maitreya was deriving all his ability to speak from his association of Krishna and Uddhava, and the fact that he was empowered by Shri Krishna. And because he met Lord Shri Krishna at the last episode of his departure from the material world, or his end of his pastime. So let's read the purport. If anyone can read, be happy to hear.
Yeah. If anyone wants to derive transcendental pleasure by hearing wisdom of the Lord, must hear from the authoritative source. As praying here, Maitreya heard the narration from his bona fide spiritual master, and Vidura heard from Maitreya. One man and authority simply presenting whatever he has heard from his spiritual master. And one who does not accept a bona fide spiritual master cannot be an authority. This clearly explained here. If one wants to have transcendental prayer, he must find a person with authority. It is also said in the Bhagavad that simple hearing from an authority source with the ear and the heart, one can release the pastime of the Lord. Otherwise, it is not possible. Sanatana Goswami, therefore, has especially warned that one should not hear anything about the personality of the Lord from the list of non-devotees. Non-devotees are considered to be like serpents. A snake is poisoned by the serpent. Yeah. So, although The narration of the pastime of the Lord is as pure as milk when administered by a serpent-like non-devotee become poisonous. Not only does it have no effect in incidental pressure, but it is dangerous also. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has warned that no description of the pastime of Lord should be heard from the Mayavadi or impersonalist. Impersonal too. He has clearly said, Mayavadi Basia Sanila Aya Saba Nasa. Anyone hear the Mayavadi interpretation of the pastime of the Lord or their interpretation of Bhagavad Gita, of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, or any other Vedic literature, then he is condemned. He is doomed. One is associated with impersonalism. He can never understand the personal feature of the Lord and his transcendental pastime.
So, okay, Hare Krishna, Haribol. So it's interesting how the Prabhupada is making a point of the parampara being hearing from devotees. And Maitreya heard from his spiritual master. Maitreya is speaking to Vidura. And Shuta Goswami is now speaking to Shonaka, and he addressed all of them as Dvija. They are qualified brahmanas. So Shuta Goswami was speaking to Shonaka. And Prabhupada is making a point that if we associate of hearing by hearing, or we associate from Mayavadis, associate with Mayavadis Katha, actually it is dangerous that we may not be able to understand it. But it's more than just not able to understand it. It may actually contaminate us in a very nefarious way. So associating with devotees who are personalist, who understand that the Supreme Lord has a transcendental form, and that all these different forms of the Lord, be it the form of a lion or the boar, is actually transcendental. But if someone does not even conceive of the beautiful form of Lord Krishna to be such an incarnation who is all beautiful, all magnificent, then they will deride the other forms of the Lord who seems to be in other species of life. Because therefore associating with these peoples and their narrations of Srimad Bhagavatam is all full of peril. And we will actually be endangering our spiritual advancement. So, you know, the sages in Naimisharanya, they were hearing from Sutta Goswami. And Sutta is a particular caste. Sutta is a particular caste of people who are Pauranic. They're actually narrators. They narrate. So Sutta, Romaharsan Sutta, then this Sutta Goswami, they are actually a special group of, and they are not exactly pure Brahmanas. They are born of Brahmana parent and Kshatriya mothers. And generally they are artisan in a way that sometimes they are chariot drivers, or they are narrators, and they are so it's not exactly like so it doesn't matter. Sometimes you know, we lay too much emphasis on this caste business. Actually, this caste thing was a division that was created more and was emphasized more and was propagated a lot more by the British in India than it originally actually existed. And this fact is coming to light now. Because in the scripture, you will see different category of people speaking different things. Right? And the birth of Lord Vyasa also, he is from a fisherwoman, right? So you know, that's not a very high caste. So you can see that this is not such an important thing. People's qualification was given more credibility. But in the process of divide and rule, the British actually emphasized, because there was a little bit of smarter Brahmanism in some of the Brahmanas who were doing pujas and rituals in the temples, and they had strict standard. And they would not mix with people so that they keep the purity of the worship. right? But because the English, they are all kind of Shudras in a way, they just derided that kind of class consciousness. The class consciousness was only because of different activities were required to be maintained pure. And also, it was not conducive for non-Brahmanas to study Shastras and Vedas because they will not have the purity to understand. Being situated in the mode of passion and ignorance, they will actually make derogatory comments and tikas and commentaries and so on the, and the understanding would not be right and complete. So that's one of the reasons that the Vedas were considered more or less out of bounds for people who are not situated in the mode of goodness and who have the proper etiquette of hearing and understanding. And it was not anything to do with caste, it was just to keep the purity of the knowledge. So just like you see now, so many rascals in India, they're writing commentaries on Gita just because they have some education. They know Sanskrit, they know Hindi, they know English, and they're writing all kinds of nonsense stuffs. But that was protected. That's one of the reasons, right? That it was completely protected. So if you are qualified, then the spiritual master would test your qualification, and then he will give you the proper initiation or the proper start to start studying the Vedic literatures. It wasn't to do with that. So it's like in some temples or in some yatras, even before they ask any devotee to speak, and as we grow, it will become something of a consequence, because you can let anyone come and speak and they can speak nonsense too, right? So it's very important. And if you're teaching in a certain way and someone comes and speak nonsense, then they actually contaminate everything. So you may think that it is not appropriate, but it is quite appropriate. So anyone want to add anything or make a reflection on this, or we move on to the next?
I think it's an important. Okay.
Yes, go on.
We can go on. We can go on actually. I was just going to say that it's actually an important aspect of our devotional practice. And I think that was one of the reasons why in the beginning, only Brahmanas, initiated Brahmanas, are allowed to speak on Vyasasan. But we see that as we grow in ISKCON, congregational development of devotees, we see that even some Bhaktas are well trained. They're not initiated, but they teach Bhakti Sastri, they teach Bhakti Vaibhavai, but they're Bhaktas. Something that in the beginning days, it should never happen, that someone is designated as a Bhakta or uninitiated, then he will speak on the Vyasasan, or even go as far as even teaching the scriptures. So I think it's a development, but I don't know how you look at it, but this idea of Bhakta teaching, because in the course of your explanation, you mentioned something very unique, that one takes the proper training and the training start test and they initiate appropriately. So how do we reconcile this with a devotee who is joining the movement, is not attracted to taking initiation from anyone, but he has studied the scriptures, he has learned the philosophy in the Krishna consciousness, and he wants to preach. And sometimes he's even given the opportunity to teach.
Yeah, but if he's studying Srila Prabhupada books properly, it's taking a long time to be initiated. That's also, there's no rule of how long. But if his sadhana is okay, and he's studying the books and he's teaching, and is behaving properly, and our movement, everyone is teaching and preaching. We go out, even Bhaktas preach and teach. So that is not a strict rule. It's not a strict rule. If someone is very qualified, like someone is very qualified, sometimes, a brahmachari may be giving class and sannyasis may be listening, or grihastas may be giving class and sannyasis may be listening. So there's no rule in terms of that level. But if the person wants to get initiated, now the idea is if he derides the gurus and he does not want to get initiated because he thinks that they're not qualified, that's one way. But if he decides, I want to get initiated, but I haven't found my right guru, and I know that I need to get initiated, and he has that kind of mindset, that's a different way. You see, it's like when I, okay, you know, two of my spiritual masters left, and it took me a long time to, you know, accept another spiritual master. But because I had already initiated, then I had the desire to find another Shiksha Guru or things like that. So I carried on serving. But if I developed that mentality at that time that, you know, I got initiated twice and they're all bogus, I don't want to get ever initiated. And even though I'm not to be blamed in a direct sense that, you know, two spiritual masters left and ISKCON had given authority to spiritual masters to initiate, and then they couldn't keep up the vows, and I'm still trying to be a devotee here. But then if I change my mind and I think no, they're not qualified because two of them left, then I create a precedence in my preaching and teaching. But if I have the mindset that, yeah, it's okay, I would like to get to the exalt of a spiritual master, but I'm not finding it yet because of experience that I have. It's a different mindset. Do you follow?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, because we have to make sure that we understand it clearly. So let me go to text 34. What to speak of hearing the pastimes of the Lord, whose chest is marked with Shivatsa? People may take transcendental pleasure even in hearing of the works and deeds of the devotees, whose fame is immortal. So we tend to hear not only about the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, but the pastimes of the Supreme Lord is definitely very attractive, but the pastimes of the devotees. And the devotee's fame is immortal. That's quite a statement. Right? Because the devotees who are pure devotees of Krishna, their fame are immortals. So Bhagavatam, this is where I draw a lot of my conclusion, stating that Srimad Bhagavatam is a beautiful story of the Supreme Lord and the pastimes of his devotees. So that's a statement in this chapter. Bhagavatam literally means, in the purport, the pastimes of the Lord and the Lord's devotees. Bhagavatam literally means the pastimes of the Lord's and the Lord devotees. So what does Srimad Bhagavatam means, if you take it from there? Can anyone say?
Come again with that.
If Bhagavatam literally means the pastimes of the Lord and the Lord's devotees, if you had to explain the word Srimad Bhagavatam, how would you explain?
Sri means auspicious, and Srimad.
Beautiful.
The auspicious narration of the Lord's pastime and his devotee.
Yeah, the beautiful. Srimad means beautiful or auspicious. You know, the beautiful narrations of the Lord's pastimes and his devotees. That's Srimad Bhagavatam. Right?
Yeah.
So, for example, there are pastimes of the of Lord Krishna and narrations of devotees like Prahlad, Dhruva and Maharaj, Ambarish. Right? Both pastimes pertain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because the devotees' pastimes are in relationship with him. The Mahabharata, for example, the history of the Pandavas and their activities is sacred because the Pandavas had a direct relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the Mahabharata also is a history of the Pandavas and the activities. Right? It's also sacred. Why? Because they are, even though Lord Krishna is not the main exponent there. In Mahabharata, it is a pastimes of the kings, generations and generations of kings, starting with Maharaj Santanu and coming down to Maharaj Janmejai. You know, the sons of Parikshit Maharaj. Maybe 4 or 5 generations of kings. And the stories thereof interwoven. And then in the central figure of the Pandavas and their struggle for, you know, justice and everything else as kings. And then in there, we have Lord Krishna coming in and out of these pastimes. Sometimes he comes in, And then you hear a lot about Lord Krishna, and sometimes he's not there. And the main subject matter is a history of the kings. But because Prabhupada makes this point, and I made this point in the class which we're taking, and because it is a narration of the history of the Pandavas who had a direct relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is no less important than directly understanding the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Do you find this interesting?
Sure.
Can you reconcile this?
Sure.
Yeah.
Very sweet.
Kamalaksha Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. All glory to you. Please, I want to ask, is the title Sri and Sriman the same?
Not quite. Shri means Shri or Lakshmi, or Shri means also very beautiful or auspicious. And Srimad means one who is attracted to something or attractive. So one which is beautifully attractive, Srimad. I think. I've read that before, but you can also check the Sanskrit of it. Okay, so Srimad. So one who has auspicious qualities and is beautiful because of the auspicious qualities. Shri means one, it is just simply auspicious and beautiful. Okay. So text 35. So anyone else on this reflection? Okay. Text 35. Yoga Jendram Jasakrashtam Dhyayantam Charanambujam Kroshandhinam Kara Karenunam Krachato Mochayadrutam. The personality of God had delivered the king of the elephants who was attacked by an alligator and who meditated upon the lotus feet of the Lord. At that time, the female elephants who accompanied him were crying, and the Lord saved them from the impending danger. So purport, the example of the elephant in Jeju was saved by the Supreme Lord is specially cited here, because even if one is an animal, he can approach the personality of Godhead in devotional service, whereas even a demigod cannot approach the Supreme Person unless he is a devotee. So how does it make an elephant a devotee? And the demigod not a devotee? Because the elephant was a devotee, and he just happened to slip for one life. And he may slip for one life or two lives, but he is still a devotee. Quite interesting, because Krishna says, Nami Bhakta Pranashyati. Now, another example come to your mind?
Example, Javidai. Yeah, this.
Who?
Javidai.
Jaya
Yeah,
Vijay. He said Jaya
Jai
Vijay.
Vijay is a pastime, it's a different category, but I'm saying is a devotee who slipped into the life of an animal. Bharat.
Yes.
Bharat slipped into the life of a deer for one life, but he was still a devotee. And then he was born again. So you can slip even into an animal life, but you can, it's quite incredible. And you may act like an animal and you can behave like an animal, but suddenly some remembrance from your sanskara, from your past, as a devotee will come. Just like it happened to Gajendra. He was a devotee of the Lord, but he was proud and he became an elephant. But then when he was in trouble, he just remembered the Lord and he picked up a flower to think of the Lord, and the Lord kept running to him, kind of saying to him, okay, one lifetime in an animal life, okay, now you are back to being a devotee. Quite strong example. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Can we say that he chanted offenselessly because of the danger it was? So the chanting was offenseless.
Yeah, because, he's in desperation.
Wow.
is in desperation, so you cry out of despair. So the father hears a cry of the child in despair. Yeah, offenselessly. Text 36. Tam sukharadyam rijubhi ananya sharanir nibhi kritangra kritagya ko naseveta turaradhyan nashadubhi. What grateful soul is there who would not render his loving service to such a great master as a personality of Godhead? The Lord can be easily pleased by spotless devotees who resort exclusively to him for protection, though the unrighteous man finds it difficult to propitiate him. Okay, so purport. Every living entity, especially persons in the human race, must feel grateful for the benediction offered by the grace of the Supreme Lord. Anyone, therefore, with a simple heart of gratefulness must be Krishna conscious and offer devotional service to the Lord. Those who are actually thieves and rogues do not recognize or acknowledge the benedictions offered to them by the Supreme Lord, and they cannot render him devotional service. Ungrateful persons are those who do not understand how much benefit they are deriving by the arrangement of the Lord. They enjoy the sunshine and the moonshine, and they get water free of charge, yet they do not feel grateful, but simply go on enjoying the gifts of the Lord. Therefore, they must be called thieves and rogues. So the performance of yajna, sacrifice to the Supreme Lord, is because we are maintained by his mercy, by his bounty, and by everything that he offers to us for successful life. So one who does not recognize this, they are considered to be verily thieves. And this is also in the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, when the Lord talks about the sacrifice and offering oblations to the demigods, to the Supreme Lord. So text 37. Yobe hiranyakshavadam mahadbhutam vikridditang karana sukharatmana shinoti gayati anumadut madutenjasa vimuchyate brahmavadad api dijja. O Brahmanas, anyone who hears, chants, or takes pleasure in the wonderful narration of the killing of the Hiranyaksha demon by the Lord, who appeared as a force bow in order to deliver the world, is at once relieved from the results of sinful activities, even the killing of a Brahmana. So you see the power of Krishna Katha. This is incredible glory of Krishna Katha. If we take pleasure in hearing the wonderful narration, taking our time, understanding, we are actually accomplishing a massive mammoth task. And by being attracted to the narrations of the Supreme Lord's Krishna Katha, even a sinful act as killing of a Brahmana can be eradicated. Such is the power of Krishna Katha. So it is sad that, we don't have kind of the opportunity to sit with devotees and do Krishna Katha every day in the association of devotees live in their presence. It is such a wonderful thing, but to be able to see even having 5, 6 conscious human beings or 7 conscious faces, eagerly listening and paying attentive and paying attention and relishing the Krishna Katha is a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. And I cannot wait to get back into my courses with the VIH, which is end of July, because or end of June, I think. Yeah, because I get to hear for a couple of hours every day. Can you imagine? And in the association of devotees, so hearing is nice. And being doubly blessed if you can also speak about the same thing that you've heard. So purport, since the personality of Godhead is in the absolute position, there's no difference between his pastimes and his personality. Anyone who hears about the pastimes of the Lord associates with the Lord directly. And one who associates directly with the Lord is certainly freed from all sinful activities, even at the extent of killing a Brahmana, right, which is considered the most sinful. One should be very eager to hear about the activities of the Lord from the bona fide source, the pure devotee. If one simply gives oral reception to the narration and accepts the glories of the Lord, then he's qualified. The impersonalist philosophers cannot understand the activities of the Lord. They think that the activities of Maya, therefore they are called Mayavadis. So this is a very clear indication of who we consider to be Mayavadis. Mayavadis who think that the activities of the Lord are unreal. They are Maya. They are not, they happen in the material world, in material bodies, just like us. No, they are transcendental. So since everything is Maya, these narrations are not for them. Some impersonalists are reluctant to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, although many of them are now taking an interest in it just for monetary gain. Actually, however, they have no faith. On the contrary, they describe it in their own way. We should not hear, therefore, from the Mayavadis. So we have to hear from Sutta Goswami or Maitreya and actually present the narrations as they are. And only they can we relish the pastimes of the Lord. Otherwise, the effects of the neophyte audience will be poisonous. So again, Prabhupada is warning us of this. Okay? So now this text 37 that we hear, it tells you the fruit. It's called Palasruti. It gives you the fruit of hearing Krishna Katha, such as the narration of the killing of the Hiranyaksha and the pastimes of Varahadev. So 37 and 38 are the last two verses of this chapter, and they're called Palasruti. So one who hears or chants and takes pleasure in narrations will be relieved from sinful activities. So you may note that is what happens. And the second is, it confers extraordinary merit. If you hear the narrations of the pastimes of Lord Varaha and the killing of the demon and so on and so forth, it says this most sacred narrative confers extraordinary merit. It confers wealth, it confers fame, long life, and all objects of one's desire. On the field of battle, it promotes the strength of one's vital organs and organs of action. One who listens to it at the last moment of his life is transferred to the supreme abode of the Lord, O dear Shaunaka. So if we happen to hear of the pastimes of Lord Varaha at the last moment of life, we can go back to Godhead. And so much phala, so much fruit, and so much result are there. You get extraordinary merit, wealth, fame, longevity, and objects of one desire. So what is the object of your desire? You can get. Now, we should not go on desiring such and such things. But we can pray to Lord Varaha for his absolutely incredible mercy to all of us. We can actually obtain so much blessings. So let me read the last purport. Devotees are generally attracted by the narratives of the pastimes of the Lord, and even though they do not prosecute austerities or meditation, this very process of hearing attentively about the pastimes of the Lord will endow them with innumerable benefits such as wealth, fame, longevity, and other desirable aims of life. Now I have one question. Where do we get the pastimes of the Lord, if not in the Srimad Bhagavatam? Where are the pastimes of the Lord narrated for us? Who has put so much effort in translating word for word synonyms and writing purports and explaining these pastimes of the Lord to us? And what is that book called? It's called Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's saying here, if one continues to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, which is full of narratives of the pastimes of the Lord, at the end of the life, one is sure to be transferred to the abode, transcendental abode of the Lord. Therefore, hearers are benefited both ultimately and as long as they are in the material world. So the devotees will also get blessings. They'll get blessings in the material world. That is a supreme, sublime result of engaging in devotional service. The beginning of devotional service is to spare some time in the beginning to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from the right source. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also recommended 5 items of devotional service, namely to serve the devotees of the Lord. You see, it's concluding again. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also recommends 5 items of devotional service, namely to serve devotees of the Lord, number 1, chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, number 2, to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, number 3, to worship the deity, number 4, and to live in a holy place of pilgrimage, number 5. Just performing these 5 activities can deliver one from the miserable condition of material life. So these are the Panchangas of devotional service, which is explained by Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Chaitanya very clearly clarifies this, that of the different angas of devotional service, the 64 angas of devotional service, these 5 are considered the most important. So we associate with devotees, we stay with devotees, we help devotees, we serve devotees, we chant the Mahamantra daily, we study Srimad Bhagavatam daily, and we do some small deity worship of the Lord daily, and we try to stay in a holy place of pilgrimage. So the holy place of pilgrimage could be where you're performing your sadhana, or the temple, or in the association of devotees, or it can also be Brajam Tishte, in Vrindavan, or places related to Mathura and Vrindavan and other holy places. It's very important. So thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purpose of the 3rd canto, 19th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Killing of the Demon Hiranyaksha. So this brings us to the end of our chapter 19. Okay. So Hare Krishna. So we'll carry on with the conversation between Maitreya and Vidura. Prabhu, how many chapters I'm supposed to do?
Yeah, I'm just checking the model.
I've done which ones so far?
Yeah, because while I was traveling, I think we entered into the 2nd unit, because
I overheard something that Prabhuji is taking us through the Unit 11 and Unit 12.
yes.
I don't know how confirmed that is.
Unit
So now we are almost
what?
at 11. Today we finish 11.
11 was 19, 18.
13 to
17.
19.
Okay, 17, 18, 19 was Unit
No,
11.
actually we are already in Unit 12 already, because while I was traveling, that was what I was saying.
No.
We ended.
Unit 12 start from chapter 20.
That's what I'm checking now.
Could not be, because it is 4. Each unit is 4 chapters.
We have finished
It
Unit
cannot finish with
11 today.
It cannot finish with 19. Didn't I start with 12? Didn't I start with 13? Shalika, you don't have it?
Yeah, I'm checking through now. I was having problem with my PDF. Unit 11 is 13 to 19. So Rasavan Prabhu is correct. So this is the end of this chapter is the end of unit 11.
Okay, so I've done unit 11 with all of you, right?
Yes, so we are hoping to go into unit 11, unit 12. So
Wait a minute, what you're saying is unit 11 is...
I want to go offline so that we can discuss.
No, wait 1 minute before you go. You mean unit 11 was 13 to 19?
Yes.
That's a lot of chapters.
Yeah.
More than 4 chapters. Huh?
Yes.
It was 7 chapters.
Yes.
Can you confirm?
Yeah, that was, yeah, I just confirmed that now from the...
If you send me the information, I'll know, but I haven't been sent the information somehow.
Yeah,
so
I sent it to you the other time. I'll send it again. Unit 11
so,
is chapters 13 to 19, according to the...
one long. That's why I was dividing into 4. I was a 4, but you know,
yeah, the previous unit were 4 chapters. So, but this particular unit is chapters 13 to 19.
So it's 7 chapters which I've done, right?
Yes. Yes.
So okay, so will I stop now, or someone else will do?
We are hoping that you take us on the unit 12.
Okay, then I will do the unit 12. And how many chapters is that?
Oh yeah, that's what I'm checking now. Unit 12 starts from chapters 20 to I don't know why my PDF is misbehaving today. Unit 13 is unit 12 is chapter 20 to 24.
5 chapters.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
We could have a break in between, have the exams, and then 1 week in between, and then, or we can continue as we did the 8 and 9, finish the 2 units, and then do the exams together.
So what do you want? Do you want me to do the unit? I have time in June up to July, but then after that I want to get time. So what do you want me to do?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think I will summarily close this class so that I go offline. I go off YouTube because I'm on YouTube recording. Just